You've just accessed Hardware is Forever, your source for the expert insights, ideas, and innovations you need to do more in the electronics manufacturing industry. From optimization to operations, join us as we put the pieces together for a better approach to manufacturing. Let's go.
You have reached Hardware is Forever. I am Chris Mitliff. Jay Patel is the CEO at Amtech, and we're continuing our conversations about lean, the lean process, lean manufacturing, in as much as Amtech is electrocircuitry manufacturing. But as we were talking about, as Jay, as the last time we were sort of introducing the concepts and these 5 principles, and we were talking a little bit about, are they hierarchical? Are they chronological? What's the relationship? We're starting today with kind of the first principle. If we think of it as first, we're not sure. We're going to dig into it, which is identify value from the customer's perspective. And one of the examples that you used in our last conversation was Henry Ford saying, we can make a vehicle in any color you want as long as it's black. And we talked a little bit about how, I don't want to say eliminating choice, but in creating focus for the customer experience, it can help us to be able to sort of reverse engineer focus to how we're doing things. Let's talk a little bit more about that. What do we mean around value for the customer? How do we know what the value is that they might not know that they know of themselves, or what the needs are that they have, or what we need to create so that it is valuable to them? Those are big questions, but where does that land with you?
I think that is where a lot of innovators, great leaders, they have aha moments, and, big high level, nobody knew we needed iPhones and touch devices in our pocket everywhere we go until we actually got one. And I think there's going to be people out there who can identify the value from the customer's perspective and see where there is, and kind of drive the industry or drive what demand is. Like, we all have smartwatches now. Nobody would have even thought that we would need a smartwatch. I remember starting work, and I was like, I don't need to have my email in my pocket everywhere I go. But, life has changed, and not only do we get email, we get a lot more in our pocket now, So I think, identifying value from that perspective takes a lot of visionaries, but it also takes a lot of customer feedback and listening. And I think one thing that's really counterintuitive is when we talk about identifying value from the customer's perspective, we always think about eliminating waste. But I think one thing I've always seen is counterintuitive is the airline industry. And so, when I go board an airline, there are 2 people checking my tickets at the gate. One is for, the first class and the club and elite members. I don't know what they're called. I'm not a part of them. And then there's the other one for, general boarding class. Boarding can go much faster if they opened up both lanes to all the customers. But one lane is always open for a particular set of customers who've earned it. I'm not saying that, they haven't earned it. And then there's a larger set of customers who only have one lane. Now, if we look at waste, and if we look at how do we turn the plane around quickly, how do we get people on the plane and off the plane as efficiently as possible, the methods that we have that are implemented are not efficient. And they're not efficient and as efficient as they can be is because that is what adds value to the customer. So I think, as a pure engineering perspective or a value stream mapping perspective, boarding does not work. It is not an efficient process. So I think sometimes you have to sit back and state, what do the customers really want? Like, airlines can homogenize everybody and tell everybody exactly which sequence they need to board the plane to be able to save maybe 10, 15 minutes on the ground every time you plane, not really deplane, but when you plane, or board the plane, you can save that much time, but they don't, because they understand the value that it adds to the customer, and that customer, what value it adds to the organization or the company itself. So I think really sitting back and thinking about what really adds value to the customer may be a counterintuitive process, but it's something that we really have to challenge ourselves to understand.
It's a really good illustration. And you're right. We intentionally create inefficiency so as to accommodate the illusion of a premium experience, because it's like 3 minutes saved or whatever to get onto the plane faster. Everybody stands up like that's going to help to get onto the plane faster. It's not going to go in your seat's still your seat. Like it's not, you're not, there's nothing really true dramatically different, but we will pay differently for this illusion of a different experience. I think that's interesting, and I think it's interesting that we are seeking in my universe in marketing. I'm always talking about, what do people want most? Do they want to save time? Do they want to save money? Or do they want to save hassle factor or effort? Because one of those three things is the most important thing in some situation to us. And I hear you saying those are connected. Knowing that is connected to how we define lean. So at Amtech, I don't know, how does that work? I guess I'm always interested in, for you, like, how does that work at Amtech as a leader, but also as you sort of personify these things as a student, or even I know about you that you sort of encapsulate these into even your own life. How do you gauge that? Like, do you look at your customers and say, okay, what's the most important thing to them and how do we optimize around that? Or is it not that elegant or easy because of just the nature of what you do? How does that work?
I think for us, because we're manufacturing, there is a set number of inputs, and customers hire us for a particular thing, which is to assemble. Everything else that does not, it's very clear cut for us. Everything else that does not add value or change the product so it is more conforming to the customer's requirements is waste. So movements is waste. Actually, or to an extent, not ordering, but doing order entry, data analysis, data entry, all these type of things to an extent is a waste. But is it a necessary infrastructure, foundational thing that we need to do? Yes. But for us, we know exactly why we've been hired and why we exist. It is to add value, to assemble circuit boards for the customer. And for us, it's, very clear. For other industries, it may not be clear. And as we grow, we may find that there's some counterintuitive things that we thought the customer didn't want or wouldn't value, but does value. We had a customer who requested us to do a BOM health analysis when they launched their product to understand, is this a good part that they selected? Is it in stock? Is the lead time low? What is the end of life? We never thought we needed to do that. And when the customer requested it, now it's just part of our standard operating procedure, and customers find tons of value in that. So really, it's, I would have just thought, okay, customer gives us a BOM, we build it and ship it. But no, customers told us, and we found different ways to add value.
That's interesting. So innovation was driven and then systematized, put into how you sort of operate, how you approach every project. Is that, let me see how to phrase this. Is that a driver for everything in the organization? So is the idea of the customer perspective or the value of the customer, does that then drive almost every decision that you make, even like the hiring decision or the infrastructure decision, or is it somehow removed from your own abilities to see like where you want to create more organizational efficiency or more organizational optimization?
I think it's a combination of both. Like, you need to have those conversations. We need to challenge each other. We have to come up with these new ideas, but also we have to make sure that we don't forget the customer focus. I mean, there's been a lot of companies who've come and gone, and we talked about Ford and Toyota, and I think that's a great analogy. Is Ford built cars and optimized the process, but did they give them what they wanted, or did they get a little bit? Did they stop pushing the boundaries like Toyota did? Yeah, and you can see the difference in there. I think that whole idea of just keeping that in mind and keeping it in forefront has to be there. If you forget or you slip a little bit, you're gone.
You brought up iPhone and Apple Watch, which was interesting because there is and it's those are always inspirational and aspirational, but few of us have the resources to sort of take big risks like that. But we build our businesses usually around what problem needs to be solved. And it's some problem that we can address or identify, some weakness in the market, or somebody isn't doing it as well as they could, or there's a demand for this, versus what's a thing we can innovate or create that nobody's ever seen before that we know could change everything, but we have to have the patience or the runway for adoption of some kind to occur. What are some Apple, that those examples are the great big beacons in the sky, but does that show itself up in small ways for you, or even in your own sort of, not just at Amtech, but just in general? Like, what are ways where we're not just responding to the customer's needs, but we're creating something new that we know can resonate?
Yeah, I think, I think everybody's got great ideas. Now, is it what the masses want? The customers want, the consumers want, or somebody else wants? Is a big litmus test. I am myself, and if I feel like it adds value to me, it may not add value to somebody else because I'm in my own little well. And that's how I think large the world. That's how large I think the world is now. Conversely, I do feel like everybody has this innate capability of coming up with innovative, creative ideas that a lot of times people don't know how to scale. And it is the combination of leaders who can who are visionaries, who can see a step ahead and have the ability to systematize and scale, who are going to get further. I do feel people, even at Amtech, we do electronics manufacturing. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of companies around the world, maybe more, that do electronics manufacturing. But everybody, because they have a different set of employees, a different set of principles, different culture, they're going to have innovative ways to implement and provide that value to the customer, which is equally as good or better than everybody else is doing.
Is vision and the ability to be a visionary a learned skill, or is it some innate thing?
I don't know. I feel like if we are all encouraged, we add value in our own way. I don't know. I have no idea. I think if we could answer that, we would be able to leverage the talent that we have more. There are tests that we take. There's life experiences. And even EOS, there's a visionary and there's an integrator. Some people are more innate at pushing the boundaries, and some people are more innate at playing within the boundaries. And I think we just got to figure out who we are. And then again, going back to the first lead principle is, as visionaries, or those people are there, how can we truly understand what the customer wants? And then can we give a novel approach or a competitive approach or equal approach to somebody else who's doing it? And that's what we have to do. So sometimes it's like, just because you're creative doesn't mean you have to blow the whole thing up and start from scratch. Sometimes you just have to build upon, and that's where the quote comes is, my success is built on the shoulders of giants. I forget the exact same thing, but we can just, as a visionary and understanding what the customer's needs are and value is, you can build upon what was there previously, similar to what Toyota did with Ford.
Do you think that it's an appropriate move to, conduct surveys and focus groups and the sort of boring but valuable stuff to understand what customers want? I think a lot of organizations, people who are visionaries, they're like Apple has said before, we don't really do focus groups because people wouldn't know what they wanted. And they have, you can call it a hubris, or you can call it a track record of success in knowing what people want. But there's a lot of organizations that are run by people who wouldn't know that they are not visionaries. They would think that they are. So can we shortcut that sort of conversation by just asking our customers what they want, getting a better sense of what they want? I don't think this is done enough in organizations. I'm wondering what you think.
Yeah, I think there's two ways of doing it. I think everybody had a Honeywell thermostat growing up in their house. If not, at one point in their lives, they lived somewhere with a Honeywell thermostat. I'm sure they did focus groups, and they asked them, would you pay $300 for a thermostat that syncs to the cloud? And like, what, $300 for a thermostat? No way. And then we see Nest come out of nowhere selling a $300 thermostat that syncs with the cloud and provides all this value because the data is there now. So I think it's a grain of salt. It's like sometimes you want to make sure you're on the right track, but sometimes you can't be afraid of taking the next step. And, again, Henry Ford, he went back to it and said, if I would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Right.
So, a little bit of that is there too. But again, those people who have the capability and the resources and the talent and just the it factor to be able to take it one step further is few and far between. And to those leaders, that is why they are respected and to an extent are revered, because they have that capability, and we should appreciate that capability.
Jay Patel is the CEO at Amtech. Jay, thanks for your thoughts on this. I think it's really interesting, and it sets us up in interesting ways for our next conversation around the value stream, and I'm looking forward to tapping into that. And I think you've got a little bit of visionary in you, so that's just me. I think that's a skill set that you've adopted. Oh, I'm looking forward to our next one, man.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers and followers. Consider becoming one today wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Hardware is Forever is designed, tested, engineered, and built by the manufacturing experts at Amtech. Learn more and let us help you envision your next project with a free Design for Manufacturing assessment at buildamtech.com/DFM.